Hello, this is Aner Dyfan Teaches from the depths, Fuel Refineries. What Fuel Refinery does is that it converts the material into fuel for the use in fuel engines and also for custom jet engines. They are incredibly useful because the conversion rate, the default conversion rate of fuel storage, that is essentially an efficiency of 10. So you get 10 fuel for 100, well, for one material, so you get 1,000 fuel per 100 cost of fuel box. Refineries start at that efficiency. By default, fuel refineries have a efficiency of 10, and then that can be improved with all of these components. A very important thing to remember though is that fuel refineries reduce their efficiency the higher they are. For example, if I spawn this in, it has an efficiency of 6.3, so for one material it will only create 6.3 fuel. So the first thing I need to do is create a fortress for this to run on. The reason I like to use a fortress is multiple reasons actually. One is very easy to raise or lower it, which means it won't have any issues regarding its altitude. Second, it doesn't have the problems with the vehicle that it keeps wobbling side to side, because refineries do have a little bit of an issue that if they are tilted, they actually can get dangerous gas and therefore will explode when that gets to a certain value. Also, it is not a structure, because if I build a structure here, it will be underwater, and refineries do not function underwater. You need to ensure that their altitude is below 10 meters at all points, but above 0. So the easiest way to do this is just have a few batteries and an RTG. Don't even need to go that large an RTG, like this. And also I'm going to make the fortress a little bit more efficient, so that we won't have any issues regarding it falling out of the sky. So I've just added some fuel storage and material storage, so we are able to observe how the actual refinery now builds. As I already mentioned, the base refinery has an efficiency of 10, but since we are at a high altitude, that is not the case, so we need to lower it down so the refinery itself is at the below 10 meters here. So as you can see, now the efficiency is nicely at 10. And then if we add other components, say a cracker, we can see that the efficiency increases by 5 for the cracker. If I add another cracker, it goes up by another 5, which is rather nice. If I add a coker, this goes by 13, goes by 16. However, an interesting thing is if I add each of these, it goes up to 19.5. So, which is actually higher than the two individual components. The two individual components, you'd have thought, this one being only 5, this one being only 3, would be 18, but that is not the case. They add up. They actually go up multiplication. So, the ratio is a bit different and not perfectly set in stone. However, another thing you will probably notice is that the dangerous gas is going up. That is because I don't have any stacks, so I'm going to add stacks to prevent it from exploding. See here now the dangerous gas percentage is going down, and that can be observed by the actual jets going off. So the question is, how do you make a very efficient refinery? Well, simply put, you put on lots of cokers and lots of crackers. So put on 5 cokers here and 5 crackers here. See, this is now an efficiency of 18.75, though the dangerous gas is still going up. So we need to add a load of these stacks. Even so, it's still taking a lot of stacks to do this. So, way you can improve that is by building the desalter. This increases the effectiveness of stacks considerably. So now, with just that spawning that component in, you can see the dangerous gas is going down and the stacks can stop it from exploding. Another question you might be wondering is, why do you want to have cokers when crackers have essentially a better value for the same cost? Well, I will show you why. If I just change all of these to crackers, you can see the efficiency is lower than when I had cokers and crackers. If I do that again, if I go back to all cokers, it's even lower. The best results are obtained with an approximate 1-to-1 ratio of cokers to cracker. So if I actually change this to this coker to a cracker, it does increase slightly, but if I add another one, it actually decreases. So if I do that, it increases. If I do that, it actually decreases slightly. So, and then if I do another one, it decreases further. So it does seem to be an approximate 1-to-1 ratio, maybe with a slight bonus towards the actual crackers over the cokers, and is ever so slight improvement. So in general, a 1-to-1 ratio of cokers to crackers is what you want to go for. And then one desalter. The next question is, how large can you make it? Well, there is an unwritten rule as to how large these can be made, and that is 100 components. And so by going on the rules at the moment, we'd have thought, actually, we can go and have lots and lots of components, but if I do that straight away, what will happen is that, well, things will explode because, as you can see, it is a lot of improvements there. I mean, it's creating a lot of gas, and it will make it explode. So, in order to make the most efficient refinery without exploding, you want 10 cokers, 11 crackers, a desalter, and then 77 of these stacks. So, let's just add all these in. So here we go. Here are the 77 stacks, and we are slowly but surely reducing the gas so the refinery isn't actually going to explode. Then I'm going to replace it to prevent it from exploding. So here we have it. This is the maximum refinery you can have without it exploding while in play, and that is sitting at 286. One thing you might not know about is that you don't have to build these vertically. You can actually build them horizontally, and that will allow you to then place these components on top of each other. And that means you can create a very much of a box refinery. The exact thing which I have done here. This is that refinery I've just shown you, but it has all the stacks utilised here and along the side, which then allows me to have a vertical arrayed refinery, which just makes the blueprint a lot more compact and small. And if I so wished, I could actually place this inside of ships, which would be rather interesting, but not necessarily required. Again, going back to the refinery we've just created, I'll just show that it is actually the most efficient you can create. So if I change the cracker into a coker, it goes down, and if I change the coker into a cracker, it also goes down. So the most efficient you can create without it exploding is 10 cokers, 11 crackers, and 1 desalter with 77 actual refinery stills. When looking at this, we can see how long it takes. So it actually takes 10 material, and it takes quite a long time, 147 seconds, in order to produce the materials. But it will produce 1,167 fuel per minute at the cost of 4 material. So it will be really rather nice, and that can then be pulled out of play. So if I actually pull it out of play, we can observe how that does. So as can be seen here, this produces 1,167 fuel at the cost of 4 material per minute. Though I do believe that is how much it creates during the campaign, and so I don't think you actually need to have the full batch containing of 2,860 fuel, though it is probably a good idea to have that much in reserve regardless. Still, you may be wondering, is this the best refinery? Because at all this point I have been saying about refineries which don't explode. Can you build a refinery which does explode and still have it function? The answer is yes, because as soon as you pull it out of play, it no longer creates dangerous gas. So here is the maximum refinery here. It is 50 cokers and 50 crackers. You can see here its refinery is now an efficiency of 4,160. That means it will convert every single one material into that amount of material. This is a far cry from the default box rate, of which is 1 material for 10 fuel. Of course, the refinery is about to explode. Still, Maybe wondering, is there any way to prove this? And the answer is yes. Because if we change one of the cokers into a cracker, again we get a slight improvement. And also, if we go over to the desalter, because these actually do increase the efficiency on their own as well. So if I actually place this here, we actually get a slight decrease, but that is now because we have too many crackers. If we go back and increase a coker, we now have an efficiency even greater than before. We now have an efficiency of 4,490.2. And just observing that here, this refinery will produce 972 material per minute at the cost of 0 material. Now, I do believe it will eventually use material, but that is a huge, huge rate. The problem is this batch time. That is around about 40 minutes. So, this is where the improvements actually pulling it out of play help. Of course, this is exploiting the game a fair bit, but here we go. So we've got 972 minute per min at a cost of 0 material. One final thing is just to point out how important the elevation is. So as I raise this up, you can see that now it is 5 meters, goes to 7. Its efficiency is still good. If I raise it up further, up to 9, its efficiency is good. And then 1 meter above 10, so 11, it drops massively. And so this, if I just keep on increasing it, if I go up to around about 20 meters, you can see that the efficiency has less than halved. This is a very, very, very important to be aware of, because this is now just so inefficient compared to what you originally had. And this has the greatest effect on refineries out of everything. You can massively increase how efficient you are just by ensuring your altitude is below 10 meters there. And that is probably the most important thing, even compared to the sheer amount of components, just because that is free, whereas all of these components do cost, and they do cost a fair bit. However, I think it's a reasonable cost, because at any point you can scrap all of these components and get the full refund. The only thing is, do not scrap the whole design if possible, because then you have to rebuild the fuel tanks, and fuel tanks you are purchasing at 10 materials, or 10 efficiency, which essentially negates the improvements of having such an efficient design. So things to consider there. Something I did forget to mention, you don't have to build refineries flat. It is just a very good idea to, because when they're built flat like here, they do produce gas, but at a low rate. You can build them sideways, and this is how I'd recommend maybe building them if you're looking at building them on a ship. Because if you do build them, you can see the gas rate is increasingly much higher there, but all you need to remember to do is actually build stacks. And you can build the stacks vertically or horizontally, and they will still function. Just make sure they are connected, like so. As you can see here, it is now actually functioning okay. It's just taking a little while for it to work. So I can build these up, like so, and dangerous gas percentage is increasing. So always build a desalter if you ever are going to be planning to have these in play, and that will massively increase the rate of the stacks, reducing the gas there. So again, if you just build some more, dangerous gas is going down very quickly. If you are planning to build it on a ship, it is a good idea to build a refinery in this horizontal position, because if you do just design it so that it doesn't explode in this vertical position like so, as soon as your ship tilts or is damaged, that refinery will go on its side and it will explode. And refineries do explode in a fairly substantial fashion. So if I just show you one exploding now, and you'll see what I mean. It does come up with warnings when it says the damage is low, so you can always replace the refinery if you so wished. And completely ignore the temperature, that just gets really hot. There we go, we do have a fairly big explosion, and it is enough to damage a fair number of components, since you can see it destroys the battery, and it did also destroy a couple of beams and actually some of the refinery parts as well. So, always a good idea if you are building a refinery on the side or in a ship to ensure it has enough stacks in order to cope with the load there. But if you are building it on a ship, you won't be able to get it to the maximum efficiency as shown in this episode. That is it though for refineries. As you can see, they are not particularly complex. Just make sure you build them fairly large to ensure that you are getting the most efficiency there possible. But that's it for me for now, and I shall see you next time. But until then, I am out. Goodbye!